Hansen to move the motion.
Appreciate serving under your chairmanship today, and I beg to move that this House has considered the establishment of a Town of Culture Award. I'm grateful also to my honourable and right honourable friends for the turnout today, which shows the Minister the strength of feeling on the focus on towns that we all share today, and I'm pleased to see members from the government party here as well also. This debate has one clear aim, Mr McCabe, and that is to explore the possibility with the Minister of establishing a specific Town of Culture Award on similar terms to the City of Culture, so that the smaller towns that we all represent here today can participate and compete on equal terms and gain the benefits of what would be potentially a Town of Culture Award. I certainly will, yeah.
I'm most grateful to him for giving way. Is it not the case that towns can actually apply for a City of Culture Award? But it's very much a David and Goliath competition, because they often don't have the resources to put in the sort of quality bid that is needed. And for that reason and other reasons, can I tell him I support his initiative?
Good. Well, I'm grateful for the right honourable gentleman for East Yorkshire's support for the initiative. It is true, Mr McCabe, that towns are part of the wider City of Culture establishment at the moment. But I defy the Minister to name a town that has won the City of Culture. And also, I think there is merit genuinely in having towns regenerate and promote themselves and participate, because they have a great deal to give. I just want to say, if I may, Mr McCabe, that in addition to the Minister, who I hope will focus on our one demand to establish the Town of Culture, that he will discuss with the devolved administration in Scotland, discuss with my colleagues in the devolved administration in Wales, meet with his ministerial colleagues in Northern Ireland and hopefully in due course the devolved administration there, to establish this scheme on a UK basis where we could potentially have winners in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales and England, and potentially an overall Town of Culture for the United Kingdom as a whole. Now, this idea is an idea that has gained traction over the last few weeks, and it has its genesis, although I welcome the support from the Right Honourable for East Yorkshire, in the Labour Towns Group, where members of Parliament who represent towns from the Labour side have looked at how we can help regenerate our towns and communities on transport, on housing, on economic employment and on tourism. And the Minister will know that my Right Honourable friend for Pontefract, Normanton and Castleford has written to the Secretary of State asking for consideration of what this central demand is today, that a Town of Culture be established. It's an idea which I think time has come.
Will one friend give way?
Certainly.
My right honourable friend, I beg his pardon, and I commend him for securing this debate. And doesn't the attendance indicate the real sense of frustration that non-city members of Parliament have about the fact that there's been far too little discussion of culture and its beneficial effect on our towns up and down the country, and this needs to change?
Well, I think all of us here today, and I'm sure, and I welcome listening to the contributions of my honourable and right honourable friends in due course, they will know that culture is an economic generator for towns. It is an opportunity for individuals to aspire to promote themselves and their skills. It is something that can bring towns together to celebrate their history and their culture. And it is something which I think can be a catalyst for change, for confidence, for support for economic regeneration. I give way to my old friend for Ashford.
D.H. Lawrence, internationally famous writer, born and raised in the town of Eastwood in my constituency. We've got a fantastic birthplace museum there. It's run by the local authority. That obviously is under financial pressure. We could do so much more to celebrate and promote our most famous son, but does he agree with me that we could do a lot more if there was equitable distribution of lottery fundings to enable our towns to reach their full potential?
Well, indeed, and there's a separate debate, but it's one that is still relevant to today, about whether towns, for example, are contributing to the lottery pot but are not receiving a fairer share for those areas, and they're effectively having a transfer of wealth from poorer towns to cities to promote very important cultural projects. But we think, generally, I would think my honourable friends will agree, that we should be looking at how we can invest that money into our towns to promote culture. I'll give way to my honourable friend. And my
very grateful. On that point of equitable funding. For example, as of last March, my constituency of Barnsley East received £30 million of lottery funding, and that's since 1995. This compares to £64 million in the constituency of the Prime Minister. Now, Barnsley is a fantastic cultural town. In my own constituency, it's got everything from Elsiger heritage to Worsborough Mill. So I'd like to congratulate the honourable gentleman on getting the debate. I totally agree with it, not least because I think Barnsley would win the award.
Well, I think the participation in the award is going to be equally as important as winning the award, because what it will do will be to energise community groups, energise the local councils, energise town councils, energise businesses to aspire to meet objectives that I'm sure the Minister will share. I give way to my right honourable friend.
Thank my right honourable friend for securing this debate and for being generous with his time. And I think we're going to hear all sorts of amazing examples of the culture and the heritage in our towns across the country. Pontefract's the home of a historic castle and the licorice fair, and Castleford was the home of Henry Moore. And right across the country, there are amazing examples that are just not being celebrated because we haven't got the scale of investment that we need, but also the investment in the new arts and culture jobs as well. And when there is a widening gap between job growth in city and town constituencies across the country, would you agree with me that the Town of Culture campaign actually has to be part of a much wider programme of investment and getting our fair share of investment in towns and jobs in towns across the country?
No, absolutely. And my right honourable friend will know that we are focused on transport, economy, jobs, businesses, regeneration of our town centres. But actually, Mr McCabe, culture and activity around celebrating our history and what happens in towns can be linked to all of those aspects, because it will bring in people to spend. If I look just for a moment, two of my favourite cities in the United Kingdom, Hull, where I went to university, and Liverpool, where I was born, have been recently part of the City of Culture. The City of Hull estimated the City of Culture programme generated £60 million in 2017 alone in terms of visitor income and in terms of additional drive. 800 new jobs, 5 million visitors, £220 million worth of additional investment in Hull. Liverpool, 44% of residents of Liverpool after the City of Culture felt they had a positive response to that. It made them feel proud of where they lived, even more so than perhaps things have in the past. I'm very proud of where I was born. I'm very proud of where I live now. But it gave them an energy that we can translate into action and to create economic jobs accordingly. Now, towns are extremely important, and I don't want to take too much time in the debate because I know members want to speak, but I can't resist mentioning the 4 towns in my constituency, just as an example of how this can benefit. Flint, where I live, has a population of 13,000 people. In Flint, where I lived, 13,000 people, it was founded around a castle that was built in 1277. That castle is still there today. It's a historical monument that people could and should visit. That castle was the scene of a deposition of a king, which was on trial in Westminster Hall, Richard II. Shakespeare's play, Richard II, the whole of the second act of that is set in Flint Castle. We've had performances of Shakespeare's Richard II in Flint Castle. We've had festivals, we've had the choirs, male and female choirs in Flint. We've got the Eisteddfod in 1969. We have even Tom Cruise's great-great-grandfather came from Flint to show that there's aspiration for people to achieve high in the arts. We have a Turner painting of that castle in Flint, which, believe it or not, Mr McCabe, has never been to Flint. Now, a Town of Culture Award could actually have a Turner painting that's currently in a gallery in London, in Flint, to be seen on a regular basis. The town of Mould. Oh, certainly. Yeah.
Thank my friend for giving way. And can I say I've been to Flint? I've had my photo in front of the station sign for Flint, and I commend it. But the point he was just making there about where we have these national treasures in our galleries and museums in our cities, the idea of actually a cultural award for our towns can not only embolden and encourage our communities to celebrate their creativity, but it should be much part of a wider debate about the disproportionate amount of funding that goes into our cities, but also the sharing of our national treasures, and on occasion allowing them to go back to their hometown to be seen by the people locally.
As I said, Mr McCabe, Flint has a number of things happening, all of which would be celebrated by the people of the town, and where things such as the painting could return to the town as part of a town of culture. Another town in my constituency, without revisiting my maiden speech, but this is important in relation to this debate, is the town of Mould. 10,000 people.
That's a long time ago.
The 10,000 people of Mould, the Mould Gold Cape, for example, a piece of gold, ancient piece of gold material, is currently in the British Museum.
Celtic.
It is not in Mould. It is not being displayed in Mould. It is not there. But if we look at culture in that town, we have Theatre Clwyd, the only production company in the United Kingdom owned by a local authority, which produces plays, some of which will be in the West End very shortly. We have a food festival, we have a Novemberfest for a beer festival, we have art installations through town. This summer celebrates or commemorates the 150th anniversary of the Mould riots, where 4 miners were shot dead and 1 person was killed as a bystander. We are having a community play in the town in the summer of this year to commemorate that activity, involving people, making people feel part of the history of the town. We have a Blues and Soul Festival, we have the Eisteddfod, we have Daniel Owen Festival, the major Welsh language poetry festival in the town. We have the football. We have, for example, Rhys Ifans, who people will know from Notting Hill, came from Mould. Johnny Buckland, who is one of the guitarists of Coldplay, came from Mould. Sian Gibson, who is in Carshire with Peter Kay, is resident currently in Mould. There is a cultural appetite and there's cultural aspiration, so people can do things for the future. Holywell in my constituency, the Well Inn Festival, Jonathan Price, the actor, was born there. Country Music Festival, Line Dancing Festival, Cardi Hart Welsh Dancing Festival, Heritage Walk, the Greenfield Valley buildings, which are historical buildings put on display, are all there. The smallest town in my constituency, of Caerwys, only just over 1,500 people, but still there. The Eisteddfod held in 1523 and 1568. The first ever legislation by Elizabeth's Parliament to control minstrels and bands was established in Caerwys in 1588. There's a cultural history that people need to understand, people celebrate, but it has an economic impact. And I just say this briefly, Mr McCabe, that, for example, Theatre Clwyd, as the major production theatre, employing hundreds of people, producing quality plays. Flintshire County Council invests something like $750,000 into that theatre. For every pound that Flintshire invests in that theatre, we get an external economic impact within Flintshire of £8. We get an external economic impact across North East Wales, including Wrexham, for example, of over £10. And that's because people come to the theatre, but they go to the shop, they go to the petrol station, they stay in a hotel, they eat in a restaurant, they support the local economy in that theatre by buying goods to sell in the local theatre. They support the local economy by spending the wages in the theatre locally. It has an economic impact. Now, Mr McCabe, Flint, Mould, Holywell and Caerwys in my constituency, all of them are supported, well, they're towns, they're town, are supported by the local councils in each of those areas. Active, engaged local councils investing ratepayers' resource in supporting those activities. I happen to say that Mould, Flint and Holywell are Labour-controlled councils, but they are investing and supporting, sponsoring activity, which is having an economic impact. And my concern today is that the Minister, I hope, will recognise that, but also will look at how we can celebrate it, how we can promote it, how we can be engaged with it. Because, frankly, with due respect to those 3 towns, great as they are, Flint, Mould and Holywell cannot compete with the City of Hull or with the City of Liverpool in terms of its scale or its ambition. But what it can do is have in its own world great activity, which a town can celebrate and a town can look to promote in the future. So our central ask today from all of my right honourable and honourable friends is that we would relish the chance for those 4 towns and every town that we represent here to be able to say, we aspire to do better, we aspire to increase our economy, we aspire to engage with our community, we aspire to put culture at the heart of our towns. All of our towns have had that in the past, through miners' welfare clubs, through social clubs, through a whole range of activity. We have to give a community back to support that for the future. And the challenge for the Minister is simply this. There is a city of culture. It is a great thing. We welcome it, we relish it, we appreciate it. But we think there is scope for a town of culture within that. And the Minister has the chance now to encourage investment, to reignite county pride, to celebrate history and culture, to encourage diversity, to promote ambition, to nurture talent, and I hope the Minister takes it today.